A lot of people are very disappointed in me for the way I opened my show yesterday, and they say I got the story wrong and got the facts wrong, and that I should apologize. I'm not apologizing because I didn't get it wrong. There was some information that we now know more, and the story has changed. But for several days, these were the stories, and I'm not going to apologize because I relied on local law enforcement statements when it turns out many of them were lying. And now we know from the state police, the story in Uvalde, Texas, is actually worse than what I told you yesterday. But there are some discrepancies in the record, and I do want to clear those up. And yesterday I talked, and I didn't go through all of the sourcing. I just talked and told you what the sourcing was saying, told you what the stories were. And people were, well, you're just making that up. You're lying. You're getting it wrong. The ones that infuriate me are the ones who get on Facebook and the like, and they're upset because I criticize the police. And don't you know the police stormed into the building and immediately opened fire? That's what they said, but it's not true. I got an angry email from someone in law enforcement saying I was disparaging the police, and how dare I? They put their lives on the line. Not here. They didn't want to. My job every day is to keep you informed and entertained. It is not to provide you a safe space where I tell you what you want to hear. It's to tell you as close to the truth as I can get it, and if I get it wrong, to correct the record as soon as I'm aware. One woman was outraged that I spent time on the public safety officer who let the guy in the building, and there was not one. Well, you know what? For 2 days, they said there was one, and they didn't correct the record until after I was off the air yesterday. Had they corrected the record while I was on air, I would have done it then. Lady, give me a break. My God, I'm only on radio for 3 hours a day. And if you don't subscribe to my email where I do stuff when they update and put in links and stuff, well, that's on you. Save me the hate for shocking your conscience and your world and telling you what actually happened. I'm flabbergasted by the weak souls who get mad at me for telling them the truth. Or when it turns out what I've told you isn't wrong, realizing, well, you got to give him 24 hours until he comes back on the radio. I can't just hijack the microphone and come back and say, hey, they've changed the story. In fact, they have changed the story, and it is worse. And today, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all the citations. So you can't say it's just me. No, I want you to have the quotes. I want you to have it all. And if you're mad, be mad at the police in Uvalde, Texas, and the school in Uvalde, Texas. So let's get into this, shall we? Well, first of all, it turns out that this guy was known for some time. The gunman would cut up his face with knives just for fun, argued violently with his mother, and shot his grandmother. Now, he shot his grandmother on the day of. But, hang on. That was the New York Post. Just so nobody thinks I'm making this up. Here's the Wall Street Journal. Let me read you the headline. Uvalde shooter fired outside the school for 12 minutes before entering. Local residents expressed anger and frustration as police reveal the timeline. In fact, the timeline is revised. The Department of Public Safety officials previously said there was an armed school officer who confronted the shooter as he arrived at the school. The state authorities now say that actually wasn't true. There actually was not a confrontation, contrary to what actually they said to begin with. If you don't believe me, well, I've got the audio now that I didn't have yesterday, because yesterday they were saying there was a school safety personnel there, and now they've changed the story. Well, here now is the Texas Department of Public Safety Director Escalon
talking
about this.
It was reported that a school district police officer confronted the suspect that was making entry. Not accurate. He walked in unrestricted initially.
He walked in unobstructed initially. After standing outside for 12 minutes shooting his gun, he walked in. So now we know that not only did the gunman walk in, but that the responding officers were cautious because they could have been shot. The New York Times reports the shooter was inside the school for an hour before police officers breached the classroom he was in and shot and killed him. One girl inside the room bled out for an hour after she was shot. She died at the hospital. Had they entered the room sooner, doctors say she probably would have survived. That's the New York Times, not me. When asked why it took so long for them to engage.
But don't current best practices, Lieutenant, call for officers to disable a shooter as quickly as possible, regardless of how many officers are actually on site?
Correct. The active shooter situation, you want to stop the killing, you want to preserve life, but also one thing that, of course, the American people need to understand is that officers are making entry into this building. They do not know where the gunman is. They are hearing gunshots. They are receiving gunshots. At that point, if they proceeded any further, not knowing where this suspect was at, they could have been shot. They could have been killed. And at that point, that gunman would have the opportunity to kill other people inside that school. So they were able to contain that gunman inside that classroom so that he was not able to go to any other portions of the school to commit any other killings.
Except while there, they waited for a tactical unit, the Border Patrol unit. The Houston Chronicle reports it took them an hour to get there. Local television station there, KENS CBS 5, says that the police yelled to kids in the classroom that they were there and yell if they need help. And when the kids yelled, the gunman shot them. That's not me telling you this. These are the eyewitnesses. These are the children in the room telling people what happened. The cop said, yell if you need help. One of the people in the class said, help. The guy overheard, came in and shot her, said a boy who had been hiding under the table. I'm sorry. That's not me attacking the police. That's what actually happened. These are the facts. Outside, the police were tasering and pepper spraying parents who were trying to charge into the school. The source for that? The Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Reuters, and the Associated Press. Here's a story from Mediaite. A mother of two students at the Uvalde, Texas, Robb Elementary School, where more than 20 were shot and killed, is claiming federal agents put her in handcuffs at the scene and other officers tased and pepper sprayed parents they felt were interfering with the investigation. There have been major questions about the exact timeline of events surrounding the shooting and the takedown of the shooter. Texas officials are still investigating, but have suggested it took 40 minutes to an hour for tactical officers to get into the school and confront the gunman after other officers were fired upon, took cover, and began evacuating the rest of the school without trying to stop the shooter. One parent, Angeli Rose Gomez, told the Wall Street Journal she urged the police to enter the building. There's video of other parents demanding they enter the building. Ms. Gomez began to make her requests more frequent. She was handcuffed by marshals at the scene for interfering with an investigation, but a local police officer let her go. When she was released, she distanced herself from the crowd, hopped the fence, ran into the back of the school, found her children, and exited. By the way, that is now confirmed. U.S. Marshals deny it happens. A local law enforcement source says, yes, it did happen. These are the facts of the situation. They're not my facts. They're what happened. Yes, it turns out that there was no school security personnel present. It turns out the 18-year-old with the gun stood outside firing his gun, and no one locked the front door of the school, and he walked in unobstructed and made his way down the hall. When the police came in, he fired at them. Instead of trying to stop him, then they let him get into the classroom where he killed all those kids and teachers. And then made it worse by calling out to the kids, and when they tried to reveal their position, the gunman killed more. This is not a story of gun control. This is a story of systemic failures. By the way, it's also a fact that several months ago they trained for this sort of situation at that school. And everything they did in their training scenario, they did the exact opposite this time. And some children died because it took them so long to get in there because they waited for a tactical unit. It turns out the man did not have body armor, as was first reported. He had on a tactical vest to hold more rounds. There's still a lot we don't know. We don't know where he got the money to buy the guns and ammo. We don't know why police did not show up while he stood outside firing his gun for 12 minutes. Multiple eyewitnesses who live near the school's in a community, said they called 911 immediately, and they watched him. And he hopped the fence to the school, and he went right in through the front door. There's a lot we don't know. But my job isn't to tell you what you want to hear. It's to tell you what we know of the story thus far as I am on radio, and correct it as the story changes, as I have done. And those changes keep making it even worse. For 2 days, people could say, well, the good man with the gun let him in the building. Actually, it turns out there was no good man with a gun at all. He just walked in. And for whatever reason, the police in the building chose not to engage with him immediately. They now say that, well, actually, he had done all of his shooting up initially. And so there was no one left to kill. Except there was, and he did when the police called out to those kids. It's not a pleasant story. But I'm just telling you what happened. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. It's my job sometimes to deliver the bad news. And there's a lot of bad news. And I want you to be able to see these for yourselves. If you subscribe to my Substack, you'd get them. If you just want to see the link that has all of these, I've got them all documented for you. You can read the stories yourself. Text the word data to 33777. And I've got all the links to the Houston Chronicle, to Mediaite, to CNN, to the Wall Street Journal, to the New York Times, to the New York Post, to the, you name it. They're all there. I got all the links for you. You can see the sources for yourself. You can read the stories for yourself. Text the word data to 33777. This is an unpleasant story. And I know many of you have reacted emotionally, and I'm not mad. I'm just frustrated. The number of people who think I willfully tried to distort something, particularly about the school safety officer, when until late yesterday, about 3 p.m., that was 2:51 p.m. actually was when the press conference was held, right as we were going off air. I don't try to willfully misstate these stories, and if anything, it's even far worse today what we know than what we knew yesterday.